Welcome back to Road Gang Radio. Join Jimmy Mack and Lindsay Lawler's Gang of the Airwaves by subscribing to Radio Nemo on YouTube.
We celebrate all kinds.
Make it official. After all, if you're listening, you're already in the gang. The Road Gang.
By the way, speaking of stage right, enter stage right, our good friend Dean Croke. He is lean and mean and on the scene. Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good to be back with you.
Good to be talking to you, Dean. And I see you more than I see Jim because I see your videos all the time online, and you're looking good, man.
So we wanted to kind of ask you about the video stuff as well before we get to your kind of morning update here. How long does it take you to create that content? And because Dave and I were having a long talk, it's taken us so long. It's taken us longer than we thought to set up this platform, to set up the way we kind of dispense content around here, that we have finally reached the point at the beginning of December where Dave and I can actually start creating, and Lindsay too, content. Maybe not at the level that you do. But how long does it take you, and how many do you set goals for yourself a week, or is it just something you do reflexively?
It kind of happens on the fly. So first of all, I do a lot of it on my own because a lot of people are amazed that I do it on my own. First of all, I have some pretty cool editing software suites on my iPhone, and I've tried to be really creative with different types of equipment types, but most of it's just done on my iPhone. I do have a couple of GoPro setups that I have inside my truck when I get on the road. So like this week when I'm heading up to Columbia Falls, Maine with you in the truck, I'll set up 2 or 3 GoPro units inside and outside the truck. But when I'm out and about, like in the UK this week, mostly it's just my iPhone that I'll have set up when I'm sort of stationary. But the editing side of it, I have a couple of subscription platforms that are kind of like $100 a year where you'll take a quick iPhone video, and I've figured out how to do the start and stop piece of the video so that I have very little post video editing to do. And if I do 4 or 5 truck videos from a stationary position, when I have a bit of downtime and I'll only need maybe 40 seconds, I'll just quickly go to the app and add all of the truck videos that I've just taken. It might only take me 10 seconds to drop them all into an app, add the transitions, and then go to finish them. I can develop one of those Instagram posts into a 30-second post in probably less than a minute, and then put it into my iPhone. That is remarkable.
Dean,
and then I put them into a folder for posting later.
Dean, I am astounded by listening to you because I know you're in the trucking world. You're not in the media world. You don't have a degree in communications, as do I. Okay, and I got to tell you that I remember the first night. It was up in Nashville. The program director of the radio station went in to do the show, and he was editing a commercial spot audio on a computer, and I thought my career was over because we were still using tape, reel-to-reel tape with razor blades, and 3M made, they probably still make it, they made a special splicing tape for audio tape that you bought on a reel, just like you did Scotch tape to wrap your Christmas presents with. They made special grease pencils to mark the tape with a white grease pencil, and you'd have and then I went to school. I learned film. I learned how to edit film. I learned how to edit audio. I did not learn how to edit video because we weren't doing that quite yet, okay? I mean,
you just dated yourself. You realize
that's what I'm getting at.
You look a lot younger than actually you just dated yourself.
That's what I'm getting at.
I got a couple of questions for Dean here. First of all, can you give us a little brief recap of what London was like ultimately? It looked like you had a blast while at the same time got a chance to look at some business stuff as well, too. But you were there for fun and you were there for family, right?
Yeah, and I'll just wrap up that thought Dave said. The one thing, and this gets to one of our other guests, Mike Gaffin, the best advice I had on doing anything with Instagram or Facebook, your first frame has to have movement. anything to do with social media, if your first frame of any post doesn't have movement, you basically lose the viewer in an instant as they scroll. So, and that was Mike Gaffin. He gave me the best advice I ever had on anything to do with social media, and I never forget that advice. So thanks, Mike. I'm sure you're listening. Timmy Mac, great week. We went over for a wedding, essentially to look after our neighbours' kids while they went to the wedding. So that was the real reason. But I got to catch up on a couple of international rugby games. One at the famous Principality Stadium, where South Africa beat Wales by a record 73-0. So it was an absolute drubbing, but South Africa are the best rugby team in the world at the moment. So that was a big event. But we went to Twickenham, which we talked about on last week's show, and watched another international rugby game, which was amazing. But just so it's the compare and contrast between trucking economy, I always find fascinating because, I mean, they're all cabover trucks over there because they have a bumper-to-bumper length regulation. But what you don't see is everyone's speed limited to 55 miles an hour. And you sort of say to yourself, well, how does anything ever get done? Well, most of the drivers, all of the drivers other than the Eastern Europeans, are paid an annual salary. So everyone motors around in their lorries at 55 miles an hour. And then, of course, you say, well, how does that work? Well, if you're motoring around at 55 miles an hour, and basically everyone's limited to 9 hours a day and 56 hours a week. So not a whole lot gets done from a productivity perspective, but then it takes the pressure out of everything. Nothing has to happen at lightning speed. No one is stressed. No one is driving at a frantic speed. No one is stressed out of their mind because they're waiting on loading docks. No one's cutting each other off at traffic. No one's annoyed because people are taking 30-minute breaks in the fuel aisle. And there just isn't this inbuilt pressure that we have in the US economy, right or wrong. So, and everybody's just sitting at the speed limit and no one's overtaking and cutting each other off. So it's a different economy, and the traffic though is different. You don't see people, but you do see people sitting in the wrong lanes. I mean, it's still got the same sort of traffic behaviours, but the trucking side of it is vastly different because you'll see trucks are a much shorter combination. You'll see trucks that are shorter in total length, but they carry more weight than the US equivalent. But they do it at a much lower speed because the population density and the road designs, the roads are much smaller and narrower. And you've got these hedgerow where they call them hedgerows, where you see them on the old English movies where the hedges are so close to the edge of the roads. And I don't know if you saw my post about the mirrors. They had this aftermarket thing where they put these big aftermarket mirror protectors on the mirrors. And they're like this massive yellow plastic protecting device to protect the mirror from when the truck hits trees and branches and buses, because everything is so close and everyone's hitting each other's vehicles. When you look at traffic in London, everything is so close to each other. And that was the thing that stuck out to me this trip compared to the last trip was all of the heavy goods vehicles, which is what they call them over there, is HGVs. They all now have these, and some of them are stainless steel. So it's become an aftermarket trend is to have these mirror protectors on your mirrors because, of course, modern day mirrors now are frightfully expensive. And that was the standout to me was the aftermarket mirror game now is you've got to have mirror protectors to put out a bit of bling to your truck, but also to protect the mirrors from people hitting them.
Dean, Dave here. I wanted to ask a question, and this may be Dave. Well, we're starting the month off maybe with Dave's dumb question of the month here.
Dave's dumb question of the month. Get it out of the way.
On the 1st of December. Size and scope is what I'm speaking of here, because Europe and the U.S. are Europe's is a bit bigger than the U.S. in land mass, but roughly the same. But the countries are a lot smaller. Some of them are about the size of some of our states. So in other words, running from California to New York is tantamount from running from, the English Channel all the way over to the Russian border, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
is the idea of the slowing down, are they really that much slower in comparison to us? Do you get what I'm trying to get at? The scale is different.
Yeah, scale is different. I mean, most of the freight, when you look at the economy, so the other thing, Dave, is remember that a lot more freight on the mainland Europe moves on barges and waterways and trains.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have the dominance of road transport that we do here in the US. So first of all, we've got a lot more long distance freight moves on trains here, but less on waterways. Mainland the UK, it's mostly regional short haul, a lot more regional short haul. That's the other thing you see. So it's long haul in the UK would be like a 4.5, 5 hour trip. That would be a long haul trip. You just don't see the length of trips that we do here. This is an incredible economy here in the US where it's hard to compare anything in the world other than somewhere like Russia or China or Australia, of course, where you'd see the scale of long distance haulage that we have here. So even if you go to Europe, you can be across multiple countries in the same length of time. You'd go from Boston to Memphis, Tennessee, for example. You would cross 6 or 7 countries in Europe by the time you do that. So the Europe is mostly, it's a regional freight task, even though you would call it international freight. Most of the freight in Europe works regionally. But for you and I, you'd be doing international freight because you'd be crossing international borders with all of the different customs paperwork that would go along with it.
By the way, you know what Europe doesn't have that the United States does? Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, and I'm not being glib about that.
No, I was picturing that,
and that's kind of what it kind of comes down to. And Dean talks about that density, which is so different. I
remember being in Oakley, Kansas, and it got cold, and they said, "Well, there's a Walmart about 70 miles." From here.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, where the space becomes a very, very different sort of concept as well, too. Dean, we're going to run out of time. I knew this would happen. I said, bring the poor man in here to kind of drop in and give us a rate update. We end up having these kind of conversations, which I find a whole lot of fun as well, too. What should people be looking for this week? Just give us a quick kind of update about where you're pointing the action to and what you're keeping your eye on.
Yeah, I'm watching California. There's a lot of activity going on over there with the Department of Homeland Security conducting some audits of carriers over there in NorCal. I think that's going to have an impact. Hard to pick what's going on with rates at the moment. Rates did go up last week, which was unusual. Good to see you guys. Sorry, I'm late to the party there on the visual side. But rates, let me just kill the sound there. Rates did go up on a short work week. Rates did go up, surprisingly, for dry van last week, a little bit more than reefer. So produce volumes were up on the southern border. So I'm watching the southern border in particular because produce volumes are starting to increase out of Mexico. So we're starting to get into the peak produce shipping season on the southern border. That is a market that I'm starting to watch now that the farmers and the protests have started to ease there. But I think we're going to start to set up a pretty tight produce season in your home state, Jimmy Mack, because of the Department of Homeland Security and ICE enforcement that's going on in California. I think that's going to have a long-term effect as we head into the 2026 produce season.
Yeah, and by the way, I hate to do this to you, but I don't know if Dave saw this Scat Pack, who, of course, our good friend Danny Nassif, who I'm hoping that you and I both see up in Columbia Falls in Maine, just wrote, "Heavens to Murgatroyd, exit stage left," Dave.
Yeah, I saw that.
He managed to get that in there. And Joe J. got the big red machine dug out. Marshall asked him the question. Joe J. got out. Marshall wished everybody a happy Thanksgiving. He spent his working. A lot of people are in the chat joining us. Dean, when do you leave for Columbia Falls?
I'm going to leave here on Thursday morning. I might get away Wednesday night. I like to do a little bit of night driving because there's less people around, less people watching. I
am leaving Thursday night, Wednesday morning, wee small hours, those hours that Dave used to kind of patrol and prowl. I will see you on Friday. I'm excited about it. I can't wait for you to see the driver's lounge. It is a simulacrum of old school because there's a lot of inside of it that is very, very new school. Our friends from Tyson Chicken will be there making food on demand. Dave got a chance to go last year. It's your first time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've just got
you're going to love it, Dean. You're going to love it.
And Dean, Dean just showed me his Road Gang pin. I got my Road Gang pin on. We still got to get one to Jody, by the way. I'm letting Tara know that. But if you don't have a Road Gang pin yet, guys, I got a couple more left. I have one little special pack. I am bringing it up with me to Columbia Falls. Dean, we got to do our pledge and national anthem. But, brother, we love seeing you, and I can't wait to see you in the real soon. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
brother.
guys.
Dean
Bye-bye.
Croke, of course, joins us every Monday and then twice a month over the course of the month here on Nemo Nation and Road Gang Radio. And hopefully one day when he writes that book, and he should write a book, by the way, we should write. We'll take a quick break here. The three of us will take a deep breath.